Hey guys, LevelCap here, and today in gaming, Warzone's balance went from bad to inconceivable. Battlefield 6 may not be popping up on certain consoles, Valve changed a major rule, and much more. Just when you thought Warzone couldn't get more broken, the developers have found a way. An update last night added the Psychov pistol to Modern Warfare and Warzone. The pistol has been in the game for a few months, but it was inaccessible by normal means. When it first leaked, it was absurdly overpowered. Its official launch is just as broken. When dual-wielded, it has a time to kill of 200 milliseconds. That's nearly half of the FFAR's TTK, the previously fastest killing weapon in Warzone. To add insult to injury, not only is the Psychov the fastest killing close-range weapon in Warzone now, it's fully automatic and has an 80-round drum magazine attachment. So it's not a one-and-done weapon, it'll actually wipe out a whole squad without needing to reload. Across social media and even in-game, players are incredibly frustrated that such an obviously unbalanced weapon has been added to the game. Putting the present FFAR and Psychov issues aside, Warzone has a troubled history with akimbo weapons. The dual snake shot setup had broken the game for weeks. After those were nerfed, it was the Renettis, and then it was the Diamantes. It seems like every time Warzone's developers add a dual-wield weapon, it turns out broken. It's really just a head-scratcher what the devs are trying to accomplish by adding such an insane weapon to the game. Raven haven't addressed any feedback about the Psychov or general state of Warzone's balance. One bright spot for Warzone players is the ending of Season 2 is taking some interesting turns. Players can transform into a zombie by dying to the radiation zones dotted around the map. Once you become a zombie, you'll be able to survive in the gas, and you get a charged jump, gas grenade, EMP blast, and permanent UAV. The season will end in a cataclysmic event next Wednesday. That event will likely see Verdansk destroyed and replaced with a Cold War-themed version of the map. Battlefield 6 might not be coming to last-gen consoles after all. A recent leak on 4chan of the schedule for EA Play Live made it look like Battlefield 6 would be a cross-generation title, but leaker Tom Henderson is saying that doesn't line up with his expectations. EA have said Battlefield 6 will take full advantage of next-gen console hardware. Rumors are buzzing that the game will feature 128-player modes. That does seem a bit out of reach for the last-gen consoles, but it wouldn't be the first time a Battlefield game's console port cut back on features or scale. Battlefield 3's maps on console were smaller than the PC version. It only ran at 30 FPS and most notably only supported 24 players per server. Valve announced a major change to their stance on cheaters. Historically, if a player received a VAC ban, they would be permanently banned from competing in official CSGO tournaments. Now, players with VAC bans will be eligible to compete in Valve's tournaments after 5 years. The exception is players that receive a ban after competing in a Valve-sponsored event. Those players will remain ineligible. This is a big deal because being banned from a Valve tournament is basically career-ending. Epic's cutting-edge character creation tool MetaHuman Creator is now available for free in early access. The tool runs in a web browser and is a what you see is what you get character generator like what you'd find in Fallout or Skyrim. The big appeal is that, like in those in-game character creation tools, MetaHuman is incredibly easy to use. Pretty much everyone can dive in and come out with a decent-looking character. Once you've created a character, you can export it into Unreal Engine or other third-party modeling and animation software. The catch is, MetaHuman characters can only be used in Unreal Engine projects. MetaHuman has the potential to shatter the boundary separating indie and AAA games. Realistic human characters are one of the hardest things to create in any game. Turning the process into basically a video game that runs in a web browser is kind of mind-blowing. Resident Evil 4 is getting a first-person VR port on the Oculus Quest 2. Resident Evil 4 is one of the most widely celebrated entries in the franchise. Its blend of third-person action gameplay and level design cemented it as basically an instant classic. The crazy part is it launched as a GameCube exclusive back in 2005. Since then, it's been ported to modern consoles and PC. A VR port seems like a bit of an odd choice, especially for a first-person one, but the brief clips of gameplay shown in the reveal actually look very promising. It doesn't look like the developers just slapped VR support into the game and moved the camera. They reworked the entire game as a VR title. It'll get a full reveal on the 21st. The developers also announced Resident Evil Village is getting a time-limited demo starting on May 1st. Players will be limited to 1 hour of playtime. According to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, Naughty Dog aren't working on DLC for The Last of Us Part 2. He says there was initially some interest in the studio to develop DLCs, but production on extra content was eventually scrapped. Naughty Dog are supposedly working on a Last of Us multiplayer game and a remake of the original. Genshin Impact's PlayStation 5 upgrade is launching on the 28th. It'll feature enhanced graphics and performance. The upgrade is launching alongside the 1.5 update. It adds new playable characters, enemies, and additional content. It's not yet clear what all the next-gen features will be, but you can expect at least 4K 60fps gameplay. Hitman developer IO Interactive is opening a new studio in Barcelona. The studio will support Hitman, their upcoming James Bond game, and a new unannounced title currently in development. IO are putting a pause on new Hitman games to focus on other titles, but are still adding DLC to Hitman 3 for at least the remainder of this year. The announced title they have in development is supposedly a multiplayer title based on one of the studio's job listings. Mass Effect Legendary Edition will include a new photo mode that lets players pause the game and fly a virtual camera around the scene. Photo mode will only work in situations where the game can be paused. It'll give you a full suite of tools to control the camera and its various properties like focus, depth of field, tilt, and more. Ubisoft are showing up for E3 this year after taking 2020 off. They'll be hosting a Ubisoft Forward digital event on June 12th. Reveals for Far Cry 6, Beyond Good and Evil 2, Rainbow Six Quarantine, and more are expected. That said, don't get your hopes up too high. Like many game developers, Ubisoft were hit hard by the pandemic and had to delay several upcoming titles. Before we get to our final story today, I'd just like to say happy Friday, everyone. We'll have our usual weekly recap video up tomorrow afternoon. Be sure to tune in so you don't miss any of this week's biggest stories. The latest update for the PlayStation 5 added support for running games on external storage. Support is limited to last-gen titles, but you can still transfer PlayStation 5 titles to an external drive to keep them stored locally while freeing up internal drive space. Eurogamer conducted a comprehensive benchmark of the external drive support and found it's more than sufficient for running PlayStation 4 games. These titles aren't designed to run on extremely fast storage, which means you don't need a super high-end SSD to run them externally. That said, it's still a smart move to buy faster storage for when Sony eventually enables the PlayStation 5's internal expansion slot. And that wraps it up for today in gaming. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.